Gamers, gals, and my non-binary pals, I'm taking you to kindergarten because you are going to learn your ABCs. I'm going to be teaching you a brief history about how this deck performed historically, a brief overview of what the cards do and the card by card, as well as some gameplay for you guys can get a feel of how this deck should perform. So, let's just dive straight into it.
And we're here with
Calvin Time.
And Calvin, what'd you do today?
Am I in the right place? I came here for a job interview.
The revamped structure deck set Okaiba was released late in 2016 during the format where Monarchs and Lightsworn were in meta contention. Now usually anime-based structure decks don't historically do very well, say the one released alongside it being Yugi's revamped structure deck, but Kaiba's had a twist. See, these structure decks had a special gimmick where although they had support for their main boss monsters, Kaiba for Blue Eyes, Yugi for Dark Magician, they also had a new additional game plan alongside them. While Yugi was flailing around with Valkyrion and the Magnet Warriors, Kaiba got these, the ABCs. Now usually when you read a Union monster, you'll want to claw your eyes out and jump out of a window, but these ones were actually good and had very powerful floating effects and protection effects. A acted as a graveyard recycling tool and protected from monster effects, B acted as a straight house and protected from spells, and C had a special summon from hand effect and protected from traps. Supplemented with cards such as Union Hanger, which allowed you to equip pieces upon summon, and this allowed players to get very easy access to cards such as ABC, Dragon Buster, their main boss monster, who reads as follows. You obviously need the 3 pieces in order to summon it, and it must first be special summoned from your extra deck by banishing the above cards you control, and or from your graveyard. You do not need polymerization. Once per turn, quick effect, you can discard a card and target a card on the field, banish it. During your opponent's turn, quick effect, you could tribute this card, then target 3 of your banished Light Machine Union monsters with different names, say the ABC pieces you used to summon this guy in the first place, special summon them. Combining the resource loop of summoning a big-ass monster with removal effects, as well as basically infinite floating bodies, ABCs dominated the playing field until it faded back into obscurity due to multiple indirect banlist hits, the introduction of Zodiac, and the acceleration of Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole. However, there is still a chance of a digital comeback. Konami has been trickling out support for these guys for a while, and thanks to Master Duel and the adjusted list, we are finally able to take full advantage of all of these tools in tandem. This includes cards such as Union Driver, who allows you to banish it while it's equipped to equip an appropriate target to the monster it's equipped to, say another piece to a piece, and that does not come with any special summon requirements or restrictions. Unauthorized Reactivation, which is just a main deck way to equip Union Driver to something, and Union Carrier, which is just an extra deck way to equip Union Driver to something. So, basically, you're going to be using these monsters in order to turbo out ABC Dragon Buster, Link 2s, Link 4s, the world is your oyster. So, let's counter ABCs. We're playing 3A Assault Core, 3B Buster Drake, and 3 Sea Crush Wyvern. It should be pretty self-explanatory why we're playing all of these. We need them for our ABC Dragon Buster. Next, we're playing 2 Silver Gadget and 2 Gold Gadget, which basically share the same effect, where while it's normal special, we can special summon a level 4 machine monster from our hand. Guess what these are? Level 4 machine monsters. Very good for rank 4, and just general extension plays in case we need to trigger stuff. Then we are playing our Union Driver, which is basically our Garnet that we want to equip off of cards like Union Hanger and Unauthorized Reactivation. Next, for a hand trap lineup, we are playing 3 Effect Veiler, 3 Max C, and 3 Ash Blossom and Joy Spring because this is OCG Hellworld and I hate everything. Next, we are playing 1 Terraforming and the 3 Union Hanger. This is an extremely powerful card that should not be underrated. Once this card is activated, you can add 1 Light Machine Union monster from your deck to your hand, which is basically just a piece, and if a Light Machine Union monster is normal or special to your field, you can target it and equip an appropriate target from your deck to it, which is almost always going to be Union Driver. Before you'd equip a piece, but now we have Union Driver, who can basically just banish it and equip a piece without any special summon restrictions. Very nice stuff. Next, we are playing 3 Pot of Prosperities as just generic consistency tools because most of our extra kind of doesn't matter, and we are playing 1 Monster Reborn just because most of our pieces are really good at setting up just this unstoppable flow chain of resource loops that basically one extender can basically just win us the game, in my opinion. We're playing 3 Unauthorized Reactivation, which is just another way to equip Union Driver to a piece, 3 Forbidden Droplet because we like our pieces in the graveyard and they trigger, as well as being graveyard fodder for ABC Dragon Buster. It helps set that up very nice. And 3 Torrential Tribute, which is, again, very, very powerful when you consider the fact that we could basically just set up like a 3-4 chain with all of our pieces after we tag out with our Dragon Buster as just sort of like a finishing blow to make sure our opponent can't really recover, and on the play, we could just swarm them out. Extra deck. We are playing 1 ABC Dragon Buster because it is limited. Unfortunately, we would be playing 3. In every other scenario, we would be playing 3. Unfortunately, we're stuck to 1, which is why we're playing this, Daigusto Emerald, which is an Xyz where basically you could target 3 monsters in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck, and draw 1 card, which is basically almost always going to be shuffling back our Dragon Buster. Very unfortunate. We're playing 1 Abyss Dweller just because Drytron, and because we can make rank 4s very, very easily. And I do not have this crafted. 1 Bujinte Tsukiyomi. You do not have to play this, but it's very, very funny if you do. You could obviously just play something like Zeus, like a Link 2. It doesn't really matter what this is, but in my opinion, I would be playing Bujinte Tsukiyomi. I don't know what I will replace it with in this replay, but it really doesn't matter. Play like a Time Thief card. Who cares? Next, we're playing Crystron Halka Fibrax for the Celine Access Code line. Speaking of, we have Celine Access Code. We've got Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn, Platinum Gadget, which is very, very powerful because if we get 2 monsters onto the board, we could go into Platinum Gadget, we could get a search off of B, we could special summon the Sea Crush, and if we have 1 more extender, we could go into like a Link 2, say IP Masquerena, and then banish 3 from our graveyard to go into ABC Dragon Buster, which is basically just a ton of interruption for our opponent's turn. Then we have Cross Sheep, which is kind of just cute. The main problem with this deck is that we don't have a lot of good extra deck spots because usually those spots would be taken up by multiple copies of ABC Dragon Buster, but we're sort of just playing like whatever we need. And Cross Sheep is kind of funny to trigger off of ABC Dragon Buster and just sort of like revive a gadget or a piece for the extension. Next, we're playing 1 Union Carrier, which is insane because we get to equip Union Driver from our deck. Then we're playing Appaloosa because it's pretty easy for this deck to make Link 4 super easily. The Access Code and Celine we previously talked about, and 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World, because this deck on turns 3 and 4 is very, very, very easy to get a ton of material onto the board, and being able to just use this as an additional form of monster removal and that sort of thing is really, really underrated and I think very powerful for this specific deck. So, let's hop into the gameplay. So, let's take you into a Plat 1 ranked match. We are against Odd Eyes Pendulum, which is bad. You can look at our hand, which is really good. We've got all our pieces in hand, we've got hand traps, we've got Union Hanger, and basically we're going to be able to pop all the way off. We're going to normal summon a B Buster Drake, and we're going to equip a Union Driver. Union Driver is going to banish itself in order to equip the C, and because it has no special summon restrictions, we are going to be able to special summon the C, link it off into Platinum Gadget, who is going to be able to help us get that last bit of extension onto the board, just so we could get access to our ABC Dragon Buster or anything else we may need. So we're going to chainlink 1C, chainlink 2B, that should be in the opposite order, and we're going to add our B Buster Drake and special summon the A Assault Core. Platinum Gadget is going to special summon the B, and we're going to link those 2 into IP Masquerena, just an additional form of interruption on our opponent's turn. Bonus points because if we say use our ABC, tag out, we can use IP and a piece to tag out into a unicorn, and we can basically just get an additional add alongside the spin. So we're going to A add back the B and B add an A just so we have all 3 pieces in hand for any last minute, fuck ups. We're going to go into our ABC Dragon Buster in defense mode because I want to play like around Lightning Storm. And yeah, we're just going to pass it on this. IP, Buster Drake, 2 hand traps, very, very powerful stuff. They're going to go for the Summoner Arts, which we do not care about, because obviously any deck that's playing Summoner's Art is probably shit. They're going to add an Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. They're going to add 2 of them, actually, because they added 2 of them. They're going to scale 1 of them. They're going to Duelist Alliance to add the Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, which is a little bit spooky. They're going to scale that, and as soon as they do that, we're going to chain Max C, because we really want to discourage them from getting any Pendulum summons, and basically, yeah, we want to benefit as much as possible. They're going to go for the Pendulum summon and go for the special summon of the Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. They're going to draw an Effect Veiler. They're going to normal summon Skullcrobat, try to activate the effect. We're going to hit it with the Effect Veiler, and immediately after that, their Skullcrobat is just kind of shit out of luck, and they're going to go straight to battle phase. We're going to go for the IP just so our IP doesn't get run over and we lose our interruption. We're going to go for the Nightmare Unicorn. Unfortunately, we do have to discard a piece, but it doesn't really matter because we want our pieces in the grave. We're going to discard A, which is sort of like the quote-unquote worst one. They're going to go straight to end phase, and because I don't want that Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon triggering in the end phase, we're going to banish it, as well as tag out with our ABC Dragon Buster, we're going to get our materials back. We're going to get A, we're going to get B, and we are going to get C. That is going to resolve. That's going to banish the Yodai's Arc, and the Pendulum player is going to have no chance to rebuild. As soon as our things get summoned, using Union Hanger, we're going to equip a B just to get the additional search. Just so we can play around as much as humanly possible, we're going to link 4 into the Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess, and we're going to trigger the effect of our B just to get additional searching. You can really tell how this deck is just so easily able to swarm our opponents and just completely out-choke them on both resources and OTK and board presence. Seeing the writing on the wall, our opponent is going to concede. So, let's get into the pros and cons. With the pros, number 1, this deck is very, very consistent. Obviously, you're always going to be able to go into, say, a Link 2 plus the Dragon Buster, which usually is enough to get you most of the way there. Any sort of additional cards such as Hand Traps, Droplets, or Torrential is just sort of icing on the cake and will basically make your opponent scream in frustration. Number 2, ABC Dragon Buster is an extremely powerful card for decks who are able to out the resource loop. Being able to float into this extremely powerful boss monster after going to like a Link 2 such as IP, as well as being able to float back into the bodies used to summon it, as well as being able to float back into this guy, as well as set up OTK plays, is extremely deadly for decks who are unequipped to deal with, again, this extremely powerful resource loop. And number 3, cards like Torrential Tribute and Forbidden Droplet are so incredibly powerful in this deck. Being able to proc your own guys as well as get them into the graveyard as fast as possible is extremely powerful. As well as the synergies with Forbidden Droplet alongside, let's say, discarding 3 pieces, going into your Dragon Buster and being able to just completely dissect your opponent's board. That is where I believe the true strength of this deck lies, being able to set up graveyard plays as well as on-field plays, proactively or reactively. Now let's get into the cons. Con number 1, this deck does have a pretty low power ceiling. Now obviously IP and ABC Dragon Buster isn't always going to get you most of the way there. Ideally, it would be, but unfortunately we just live in a much faster time where combo decks are able to honestly push through 2 to 3 disruptions pretty easily, especially when you consider decks like Drytron and Adamancipator. You can play stuff like the Galaxy Soldier engine in order to go into the Infinity, but you sort of have to ask yourself, do I really want to spend 4 to 5 cards in order to end on basically 3 interruptions when Adamancipator can end on like 7 with 4 to 5 cards in hand and Scythe Lock you? Con number 2, this deck honestly can be pretty slow if you're not able to get the ball rolling turn 1. If you're not able to summon your Dragon Buster and get that whole resource loop going, you're basically setting a Union monster, setting a trap card, and like hoping for the best. There's a reason why this card, like historically when it was sort of like floundering around, played like 20 trap cards. And number 3, this deck, unfortunately, only has 1 ABC Dragon Buster at the time. This sort of leads you into playing a lot of unnecessary stuff in your extra deck, and if you lose your Dragon Buster, say to DD Crow, Called by the Grave, a bunch of stuff like that, where you can honestly just lose the game off of getting Called by the Grave on ABC Dragon Buster, you're kind of fucked. You are basically just playing Link spam with shitty Union monsters that have no recursive shell. Overall, I think this deck is pretty good. It obviously has a lot going for it. It's a very unique flavor of control, aggro, OTK, and I am all for this deck. Just don't expect to be solving world hunger the way Adamancipator or Drytron is. And that's going to be it. See ya.